right, so today we're going to review some vocabulary, the words that you put in to the Ziploc bag, those ecosystem vocabulary words. You're going to practice matching them, then you're going to use the key to see which ones you missed. A lot of times it's going to be words that have something to do with the other words, like biosphere, biome, ecosystem. A lot of times those specific uh, differences between the definitions are hard to tell, and so they are actually very much interrelated. So sometimes hard to tell which one's which. Another thing you might have happen is maybe you flip which one's which, like host and parasite, or maybe you get natural selection and adaptation confused because in order for natural selection to happen, the organisms have to be adapted to that particular environment to survive. And adaptation is actually the characteristic of whatever it is, whether it be sharp teeth or camouflage, that help them to survive. So knowing which ones you miss and really looking at why you missed them and how you can tell the differences between them. Another two that get confused a lot of times, decomposer and scavenger. A scavenger actually eats the organisms that are dead, whereas a decomposer breaks down the dead plant or animal material. So do your matching, check it with your key, see if you can find why you missed them. After that, you're going to look at this review that asks you to look at a portion of a marsh food web. So portion means it's not the whole thing. If I give you a portion of pecan pie, I'm not giving you the whole pie, I'm just giving you a part of it. So this isn't the whole food web, it's just a part of it. And they want you to create accurate statements to describe the organisms in the food web using all of the vocabulary words that might apply to each organism. And so I'm going to want you to flip that over onto the back and write this list of words, biotic and abiotic, which abiotic, there shouldn't be anything on a food web that's abiotic, right? But all of these things are biotic. So we've got producer, which could also be called an autotroph, consumer or heterotroph, the different types, primary consumer, secondary consumer, tertiary consumer, herbivore, omnivore, carnivore, a decomposer, a scavenger, a parasite, a host, a predator, or prey. So once you copy all of those onto the back of your page, those are the words that we're going to be using when we describe the various organisms. So the first thing I told you to do whenever you see a food web is, if you're going to analyze it, is to find the producers. And you'll know they're the producers because they only have arrows going out. They don't have any arrows going in. And so you're going to circle them. And so looking at this food web, find the producer. Circle it. And you should have circled algae. And you'll notice there's solid lines and there's dotted lines. So I'm going to analyze that. I'm going to go, why they got dotted lines? Well, there's lines from the birds, the fish, the worms, the crayfish, the algae. Everything goes into the bacteria. So on this food web, dotted lines must mean the organism died. And now the energy is going into the decomposer. And so I'm not really going to highlight the arrows that are dotted coming from algae because that means it's dead and that's how it's being broken down. But I am going to highlight only the arrows coming from the producer going into my organisms here, so the worms and the crayfish, and then I'm going to be able to analyze the crayfish. So when I look at the crayfish, how many arrows does it have going in? Just the one, and it's from the autotroph, it's from the producer, algae. So that means that it is an herbivore. It also means that it's a primary consumer. We also need to look at predator-prey relationships. And so it's, when we have an herbivore, they're never predators. but they often are prey. So it is eaten by birds, it is eaten by fish, and so that makes it prey. And using the list that I had on the back, of course, crayfish are biotic, because they are living. That's a word that could describe them. They are primary consumers. Another word for consumer is heterotroph. And they only eat plants, so they're herbivores. And we said that it was eaten by something or hunted by something, so it was prey. And so those would be all of the words that I could use that would describe the crayfish and its place in this food web. And so you're going to do the same thing with the birds, the fish, the worms, the algae, and the bacteria. I would recommend going through here and writing it down just like we did when we were making the energy pyramid. And that makes it a little bit easier to make sure you get them all. At the bottom, it says in the diagram below, what does this X most likely represent? It's either an autotroph, an herbivore, a decomposer, or a carnivore. They want you to explain how you eliminated all of the other choices and why your answer is correct. So you look at the arrows and you'll notice that they've labeled producers, or the plants, right? The producers, the energy goes into the consumers. The energy from the consumers goes into X. The energy from the producers goes into X. But then they also say that the energy from X is actually going to go into these minerals that are in the soil, which then goes back into the producers. So you need to figure out what you think X is, and then figure out how do you know that it's not the others, whatever the others are. And you write your explanation. It couldn't be whatever because blah, 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 blah. So that's how you're going to do that.